Kieran, another point is fascinating, the stagecraft here. Obviously, Donald Trump would have organised this rally in Michigan with the timing planned so that he gets to respond to the impeachment. It's perhaps gone a bit later than he expected, but obviously he's being kept up to date with developments in Congress, and he very much wants to craft this image of being out there among the people, carrying on the same sort of arguments and the same sort of presidency he has been doing, about doing it at a time where he actually gets to give an instant response to what's transpired.
And he said, it doesn't feel like we're being impeached, he said to the crowd there in Michigan, and with a big smile he came out and said, Merry Christmas. There are Christmas trees there, a festive mood in Michigan, despite President Trump becoming only the third president in history to be impeached after Bill Clinton in '98 and Andrew Johnson back in the 1860s. So Richard Nixon, we know, resigned before he was able to be impeached. But Donald Trump saying it doesn't feel like we're being impeached. He says, and talking to that very strong support base that he's got in the United States, and it's held up over 40%. The question, as we've been discussing with Chris Kenny and Bruce Wolpe, is what about that middle ground? What about the support for the Democrats? Will it hold up? Will they turn out in November? And the Lowy Institute poll this week suggested 97% of people who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 plan to vote for him in 2020. So that base is rock solid. What will that 5% in the middle do? Which way will they go? And will they turn out to vote in favour of the Democrats? That's one of the questions that remains to be seen, and so much depends on what Bruce was talking about there in terms of the Democratic primary. Who do they settle with? Do they settle with a populist from the left like Elizabeth Warren, or do they go the middle ground with someone like Joe Biden, despite the question marks that Chris pointed to over him, his judgment, his credibility heading into 2020? But he is a more moderate figure as opposed to, say, a Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. And many, I believe, I think on the Democratic side, Bruce, would suggest that he's the right person to take on Donald Trump. I think there's a question mark over that, particularly when you've got, say, someone who is a populist on the right versus maybe a populist on the left. You wouldn't necessarily think their policies are too great, but is, in a political sense, Elizabeth Warren someone who might provide a potent attack from the left, as I say, with her populist approach, Bruce?
And in the context of the UK election, this all kind of crystallizes. And you'll remember in 2016 when Brexit was passed, that became a harbinger for Trump being able to triumph in November. And so the hardheads in both parties are looking at what happened in the UK election last week and saying if the Democrats replicate Corbyn and Labour in the UK, well, their chances just diminish significantly. And I think a lot of people who desperately want to take the White House away from this president are cognizant of it. And the question is how that translates among the broad-based constituencies of the Democratic Party.